Dr. Ken Berry's ridiculous claims on IBS and SIBO. His comments are some of the dumbest and most dangerous claims you will hear on the internet this year.
Are Dr. Berry's claims dangerous about irritable bowel syndrome and SIBO, or small bowel overgrowth? Let's find out. I'm Dr. Eric Westman, and if you don't have my top 10 tips to start keto right, please look in the description below. I was sent a video by Goji Man, who the title is Nutritionist Reviews Dr. Ken Berry's Dangerous IBS and SIBO Claims. It's an interesting one to review because this interviewer is trashing or taking apart Dr. Berry's comments, and I know Dr. Berry. He's a physician in Tennessee and has been treating patients for a long time using low-carb or now carnivore type of diets. I didn't know Goji Man. Goji Man is a YouTuber. When I look at his information, he is in training with nutrition, so he's really not a nutritionist. And it's interesting because he slams Dr. Berry for not being an expert on this. Anyway, you got the ad hominems and all that, and as you know, as we review people on the internet going after each other, there's usually some truth in there, and even it might be that both people are right. But so Goji Man at the end of his little bio says he wants to make everyone go vegan. So, okay, we got it now. He's going to have those kind of stereotypical go vegan sorts of things, and anything but our way, isn't going to work. Well, so I have a little different approach, and that is if there is science or vast clinical experience about something, there is some validity to it. And I don't claim that there's one size fits all really for anything. I don't think any YouTuber who's a physician and then has had a clinical practice will claim that there's one size fits all for everyone. But so anyway, always look at the source, and let's see what Goji Man says about Dr. Ken Berry's dangerous IBS and SIBO claims.
In today's video, I review Dr. Ken Berry's ridiculous claims on IBS and SIBO. His comments are some of the dumbest and most dangerous claims you will hear on the internet this year.
Well, danger, remember, be careful with language. Danger to me is you're on the edge of a cliff. I think, Goji Man, you're going to, I guess, pull out some cases of how people have been harmed by Dr. Ken Berry's ideas. Dangerous in terms of a food recommendation. Rarely, unless you have an allergy to something, peanut allergy, that would be dangerous if you had a peanut. There's a new allergy out there spread by a tick called the Lone Star tick. It actually spreads an allergy to meat, which is fascinating because if you have a problem that you can't diagnose, an anaphylaxis is an allergy where you end up in the emergency room, sometimes with swelling so you can't breathe. You might even have hives, which is a smaller yet serious reaction to meat. There's a tick that carries this and actually is a tick-borne disease, hard to get the words out here, that actually makes you allergic to meat. And it's called alpha-gal. And the interesting thing is it's hard to diagnose. If you've been out, and if you never had been outdoors and you went outdoors once, a doctor might suspect a tick-borne disease, but alpha-gal is actually allergy, and it would be dangerous if you had an allergy to alpha-gal. So I don't think that danger is the right word. Ridiculous claims? Well, maybe to this. I like Goji Man's style, but the language is a little out of bounds here.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. As always, just a quick reminder that I'm now offering the SIBO, organic acid, stool test and consult via my website. So if you have any health or digestive problems, then consider taking these tests, as they will provide a lot of very detailed information upon which you can start making informed decisions and then start getting your health back on track.
Well, that's interesting. That I think that scrolled by 250 pounds for a stool test. Wow, I don't know if he gets a cut from that, but sometimes buying it through a website you can actually get a kickback from that, but I didn't realize he was selling a product. Of course, it's not something to fix the SIBO, it's to diagnose the SIBO. Interesting.
And on that bombshell, to the video.
Having SIBO sucks. And in this short video, I'm going to tell you how to completely eradicate your SIBO symptoms.
Most health organisations around the world suggest that upwards of 80% of IBS has SIBO as a driving factor. So if Ken has some news on all of this, which can help many of these people, then I think we should all listen.
I'm Dr. Ken Berry, a family physician. Let's talk about this because it's important. So if you're having abdominal pain, bloating, uncomfortable fullness after you eat, diarrhea, or any of the symptoms of small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, then this video is going to help you.
So I've just twigged that Dr. Berry is yet another carnivore dieter with a fruit or vegetable in his name. You couldn't make it up, could you? But on this point, Dr. Berry is just another doctor promoting yet more drivel. For years he promoted eating fruits and vegetables, and then he run into digestive issues. And obviously 2 + 2 is 35, and because Dr. Berry had a problem, it means the world is completely wrong and all fruits and vegetables are bad.
The two ways that we diagnose SIBO formally, although many gurus out there will diagnose it based on your symptoms alone, which is probably inappropriate if your symptoms are severe.
Absolutely, you need to get diagnosed correctly if you have SIBO, because if you treat for a SIBO problem based on assumptions and you don't have it, then you could potentially do a lot more harm than good.
Time out. That's a little fear-mongering. I'm going to call that out. To change a diet and try something and see if it works without testing even is reasonable. And I speak from experience testing and studying low-carb keto diets, not vegan diets. And actually, the joke I have with people who come to me, a kind of irony, is that everything in the gut gets better when you take carbohydrates out of the food. And that's what Dr. Berry is talking about. A carnivore diet is a subset of a low-carb keto diet and takes the vegetable matter down to a very low degree, low amount. And actually, I've seen what Dr. Berry is saying to be true, even though our paper was published, in 2008 on irritable bowel syndrome, where people were put on a low-carb keto diet and their irritable bowel syndrome symptoms went away in just a matter of 2 weeks. And then another study we did on heartburn, these symptoms go away in just 3 days. So the interesting thing here is that we have a nutrition trainee trying to find papers that support a position that a doctor who in clinical practice has actually observed. And so I guess I can give the testimonial that Dr. Berry is a legitimate physician and actually had clinical training and clinical experience for 15 years at least, I think. And he invited me to his conference over in Dixon, Tennessee this summer. And so actually I find a lot of credibility in what Dr. Berry says so far. And whether or not you need testing or not, it leaves, I think it's open to be determined yet. So let's see what Dr. Berry says.
We can do it with a breath test that either checks your breath for methane or hydrogen production. Both of these tests use sugar that you ingest as a way to stimulate the bacteria to form the gas that they then detect on your breath. This should be a hint as to what you can do to make these bacteria very uncomfortable.
So Dr. Berry is saying here that the bacteria ferment the lactulose or glucose solution that you drink, and this releases certain gases such as hydrogen methane or hydrogen sulfide. And SIBO just means that you have bacteria in a portion of the gut where it shouldn't be. And where Dr. Berry is taking this conversation just shows how ridiculous he really is. So the vast majority of people on this planet eat fruits and vegetables, and they do not have SIBO related problems. Therefore, could it not be conceivable, Dr. Berry, that people with SIBO had a trauma in the gut such as antibiotics, post-infectious IBS, or they were eating a lot of processed refined foods, and it is these types of triggers that push the bacteria in the direction of their small intestines?
Well, so here we have the logic that if there's one way that works using antibiotics and continuing to eat what you eat, if that works, then nothing else can work. I mean, I don't buy into that logic. I think there are a lot of different kinds of cars that work. They all have four wheels and they have certain elements, but they're different kinds of cars, and they all can work. Although when you're on the sales floor of one car's manufacturer, they're not going to talk about any other car. They're salesmen. So just because, Goji man, just because your approach you're talking about, where you send away the stool, you take an antibiotic and then reset the bacteria, and you can continue to eat carbs, works to fix it, great. That's one way to do it. Doesn't mean that Dr. Berry's way is wrong.
And therefore, if most of the people on the planet eat fruits and vegetables and don't have digestive issues such as gas and bloating, wouldn't the sensible thing be to remove the bacteria from the small intestines which are causing the person's symptoms? And then there is no need for them to go on extreme diets like the one you're about to suggest. But again, everyone in the world who is eating fruits and vegetables is wrong, and Dr. Berry is right. The sheer arrogance of this type of video is ridiculous.
Well, I don't think Dr. Berry's coming off as arrogant. Forgive me. I think that's a projection of Goji Man's arrogance here, isn't it? So the interesting thing is there are a lot of ways to go about it. Let's see what Dr. Berry has to say.
It's perfectly normal to have a ton of bacteria in your large intestine. But in your small intestine, you shouldn't have nearly as many bacteria. And if you have too many, that's the overgrowth that leads to these symptoms. There's a little sphincter between the cecum of your colon and the terminal ileum of your small intestine called the ileocecal valve. This is to keep poop out of your small intestine and also to keep out the majority of the bacteria that should be in your large intestine, but not in your small intestine.
At least there is something we agree on.
The other way we test for this is to pass a tube down and actually take an aspirate of the liquid that's going to be in your ileum, the terminal part of your small intestine, and then culture that and see what grows out. Not only what grows out, but how many bacteria grow out.
For most people, this is not advisable as it's an invasive procedure. The obvious exception to this is if you're already having an endoscope or colonoscopy and you're already having invasive examinations in the first place.
Now, many doctors and other healthcare providers make this much more complicated than it should be. They'll prescribe you lots of pharmaceuticals or lots of supplements or herbs or cleanses. None of this stuff is necessary. Here's all you gotta do.
How complicated is taking rifaximin or antimicrobials for a few weeks to fix the issue? To me, taking something that is proven to fix the problem is a lot less complex than eating a diet with zero scientific evidence behind it.
Well, hang on. There is a lot of scientific evidence behind low-carb diets, and I have to admit that in direct examination of people in comparative trials doing carnivore or low-carb keto for small bowel overgrowth or for IBS, not very few randomized trials on this with diet at all. So often it's the pot calling the kettle black in terms of there's no science to prove that. Well, where's the science to prove this method of diet? Well, he's adding in the antibiotics, and some people don't like being on antibiotics. So it's a lack of a clinical sense here of different options that people might want to choose. And again, it's kind of like my way or the highway, I'm afraid.
Humans are great apes, and we've come from a line of orangutans, gorillas and bonobos that have fared perfectly fine on fruits and vegetables for hundreds and hundreds of thousands of years.
Oh boy, I need to do a video which brings out the anatomy of the intestinal tract, comparing humans to those great apes. We don't have the intestines of the great apes, and there's a beautiful video by Dr. Barry Groves called Homo Carnivorous, where he goes through these, and I need to redo that and bring that out, because that is just a terrible misconception of you'll even see this in some of the vegetarian videos of, an ape eating a plant, therefore a human eats a plant. Many years of evolution created a different kind of intestinal tract, even though there may be a some sort of ancestral connection between the great apes and humans. I was even corrected on a video that, they're really not our ancestors. And again, trying to be precise with the language. I want to be updated and upgraded in my understanding of these things, but we don't have the intestines of a great ape.
Again, what Dr. Berry is saying is that all of this is wrong, and also, despite there being proven treatments for SIBO, you should follow his advice that has absolutely zero evidence over its success or safety.
Well, so I don't get that feeling from Dr. Berry that he's saying that you shouldn't do anything else. He's just stating a case for trying what he's talking about, right?
If you do this faithfully and strictly, your SIBO symptoms can be gone within 2 weeks. In some cases, 4 or 6 weeks, but for the vast majority of people, within 2 weeks, your symptoms will be completely gone. So what do?
There are lots of ways to reduce symptoms, but we don't want to reduce symptoms. We want to fix the problem at its root cause. Case in point, look at how many people in the carnivore and keto communities say they have fixed their digestive issues, and the minute they eat a piece of fruit, their whole digestive system falls apart. So yes, there is absolutely no denying that if you remove all fruits and vegetables from a diet, that a person will experience a reduction in symptoms. But what good is all of this if 4 weeks later they fall apart when they try and reintroduce the food, because not only have they not fixed their SIBO issues, but they have also significantly reduced the amount of bacteria in their microbiomes, which help them with optimal digestion.
That's just fascinating. Let me recapitulate, unpack that. So basically what he's saying is, okay, maybe it works, but who's going to do it for very long? Because when you reintroduce, after 4 weeks, all of the things that caused your problem, the problem's going to come back. Now, so Goji man, I have to just kind of pull rank, because I've been in a clinic where people tell me that all of their digestive system problems have gone away in a matter of a couple days, not even the 2 weeks or the 90 days you're quibbling about. So if, it doesn't take long to figure out that carbs are causing your intestinal problems. And if, in my experience, if someone has serious and bothersome digestive trouble, and they fix it just by changing the diet, and they're not adding antibiotics or probiotics or all these other things, they're feeling like maybe they don't need to re-eat those things that were causing the problem in the first place. I mean, especially if you're reversing type 2 diabetes or obesity or any gut issue or other serious metabolic problem like hypertension. We can get people off all of those medications. So again, it's kind of a interesting idea that no one could do this for a long period. A lot of people do this for a long time if it fixes their problem and they don't go back to the way of eating that gave them the problem. That's the clinical experience of using these kinds of diets. Whether they're extreme or not doesn't, compared to what people are eating, that doesn't matter to me, as long as people are getting great nutrition and getting relief of their medical problem.
But again, apparently fixing SIBO with known proven treatments for a few weeks is complex, and going carnivore or keto and causing much bigger issues, well, that's the magic bullet. Humans unfortunately love the path of least resistance, and they will often do what is most easy instead of what is right or what is required.
Well, wait a sec. If it's easy to not eat carbs, now you're criticizing a program for being easy. I mean, you can't win, can you? So, okay, you fixed the GI problem by not eating carbs, and it was easy. Well, you're not doing the right thing, because you're what? You're supposed to eat things that cause you problems, and it's supposed to be hard? I don't understand these sort of rationalizations going on in the brain here.
It's the old adage, if it's too good to be true, then it probably is.
You go carnivore. You eat a diet consisting of just animal products. What this is going to do is eliminate all sugars from your diet, because even any carbohydrate breaks down into sugar, right? The starches, the soluble fibers, all these things break down ultimately into sugar, which feeds these bacteria in your ileum and leads to the symptoms you're suffering from. So you can do a seafood carnivore diet, you can do a red meat carnivore diet, you can do beef, butter, bacon, and eggs. but I would recommend you do it for 90 days.
90 days of eating beef, butter, bacon and eggs, or for many people, a few weeks of supplements or rifaximin prescribed by their doctor, followed by a couple of weeks of rebuilding their gut. And
well, that should be a choice. That rather than saying one can't work or one has to, you have to do it one way.
guess what? They can continue to eat the foods they enjoy and are healthy the whole time.
For complete healing of your SIBO, but you're going to notice significant improvement, reduction in your symptoms within the first 2 weeks. Give it a try and then let me know how it went in the comments. This is Dr. Berry. I'll see you next time.
It's also interesting in the title of his video, he claims to be able to fix SIBO in 2 weeks, but in the video he tells you need 90 days of beef, bacon and butter. What a joke. There are already lots of people in his comment section saying they've already tried his methods to fix their SIBO issues and it didn't work. But I guess Dr. Berry and the carnivore community would just say they did it wrong. Anyhow, that's the end of today's video. If you enjoyed this video, then be sure to check out this one up here because I'm sure you'll find it equally interesting. And the only other thing that's left for me to say is to remember to look after your body because it's the only place you have to live. And I'll see you next time.
Well, I like his style, but I'm sorry that there can be other ways to go about. I'm not sorry. I have to just say that there are other ways to fix things other than antibiotics. And I joke sometimes that I really should be a gastroenterologist, even though I'm not. I'm a general internist and obesity medicine specialist. I use keto diets and I fix just about every gut-related problem and I've had even people go to the gastroenterologist and the gastroenterologist forgot to ask what they were eating and what medicine they were taking, and so that you get scoped up and down, you know, the endoscopy, colonoscopy, they don't figure out what's going on, and I ask people to change the food and it fixes things. And you can know really fast if something's going to help your GI tract, if you have a, you know, relatively minor or moderate problem. And of course, if you have a problem that doesn't get better with a dietary manipulation like this, please do seek medical care to get visualization of the GI tract where you can. Well, so I'm sorry, Goji Man, I stick up for Dr. Ken Berry's clinical experience because that's my clinical experience as well, and I have 2 papers that are published that actually show reduction in IBS, diarrhea predominant, and heartburn, or GERD is the other term for that. You know, the clinical use of low-carb keto diets is way ahead of the research on low-carb and keto diets. And in a recent video, if you didn't see it, I reviewed an interview of Dr. Christopher Gardner, who's a clinical trialist at Stanford. And even after doing a keto diet study, he came out against it because it didn't fulfill all of the things he thought people had to have in the diet. He's a PhD, he's not an MD. So the clinical experience in the medical clinic is so far ahead of the science that if someone's just trying to find a paper that's published on this, they may not find it. And you may have to visit a doctor with experience. I have over 20 years of experience studying and using low-carb keto diets. Dr. Ken Berry has a lot of clinical experience, I think over 15 years using it. So you may just need to try it to see. If you're on medications, of course, be careful. Diabetes medicines have to be reduced on the first day that you cut carbohydrates back. So be sure to do it with a practitioner who understands how to adjust the medications if you are on medications. So just to recap, danger is, it's not danger, Will, Roger, it's not, you're not on the edge of a cliff here if you change the food. And I think the lesion that I need to fix in most people's minds, I guess, is that we are not apes. We don't have the digestive tract of apes. Our digestive tract is much more like a carnivore's or omnivore's digestive tract, not a vegetarian. And I'll have to do a deep dive into that in an upcoming video, so stay tuned for that. If this is helpful, click like and subscribe so you don't miss out on further videos, and please send this to a friend or family. It's a grassroots effort. If you don't have my top 10 tips how to start keto right, look in the description below. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. and check out adaptyourlifeacademy.com.